Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the call. My name is Kim Mavon. I am board chair of the Corona Chamber of Commerce and owner of Creative by Design. Today is a great day with some important updates ahead, and we appreciate you taking your time to join us. As all our weekly calls are informative, we continue to assist you in creating vision and bring a variety of speakers and topics. Today's event is sponsored by Raising Cane's. With over 500 locations, Cane's prides itself on serving their one love, quality chicken finger meals better than anyone else. At Cane's, you can get an exceptionally high quality product served quickly and conveniently. Their vision is to not only have the great quality meals, but a great crew, cool culture, and be active in the community as well. Thank you, Raising Cane's, for sponsoring this meeting. As a reminder, please use the chat button to ask any questions. Send your questions to Chamber Host and we will verbally ask them at the appropriate time. Coming up next Thursday is our 10th annual Women's Leadership Conference. This will be held in person at Crossroads Church with doors opening at 7:15 a.m. A virtual option is also available. We invite you to come out and listen as we have 10-minute talks from some of the most impactful women in the area. We will also have a physicians panel and a special message from the founder of the conference, Supervisor Karen Spiegel. Get your tickets today at mychamber.org/WLC. Our next mixer will be held on October 5th at Sunset Bands here in Corona from 5 to 7 p.m. We will be featuring a very amazing guest, founder and CEO of Destroy Duchenne, Elijah Stacy. He will be signing copies of his new book. This is a mixer you will not want to miss. Sign up today at the bit.ly shown on the screen. I'm also happy to announce that our October 11th Coffee with an Entrepreneur will feature Chad Willardson. Chad is the founder and president of Pacific Capital and was also elected as Corona City Treasurer in 2016 and 2020. He will be giving away a few signed copies of his brand new book, so make sure you register now at the bit.ly shown on the screen. If you are a guest today and not currently a member of the Corona Chamber, we welcome you to join our Chamber family. Meetings like these are just one of the many benefits of being part of an active, thriving organization like the Corona Chamber. Please outreach to Robert Yanez as he can review the many incentives for both joining and referring businesses to join. Before we begin with our next segment, let me share with you about those who are on the call. We have Jeff Miller, retired assembly member from the city of Corona, used to be on city council, and who is our chair of our legislative outreach. We also have Amanda Wicker from the city of Corona. We have Kimberly Davidson from the city of Wildomar. Thank you all for joining. So I also have former Corona Mayor and Citizen of the Year, Jason Scott. Thank you all for attending today. At this time, we will shift to our advocacy segment where our legislative advocate, Jeff Gibson, will share. Keeping a pulse on what's happening in Sacramento and Washington, D.C. can be a full-time job. With Jeff Gibson's thorough and complete research, he helps the Corona Chamber to act timely on projects and initiatives that help make a difference in shaping our community. As owner of Occidental Communication Group, his knowledge of complex political issues and the great relationships he has built ensure the Corona Chamber has the tools to be effective on the behalf of the business community. Please help me welcome Jeff Gibson to share a legislative update.
Good morning, everyone. So the legislature, as we have discussed, finished its work on September 10th. And throughout the year, we took a number of positions and wanted to update you on a number of those successful positions. These are completed. So the governor has until October 10th to decide whether or not to sign bills. He has signed some of those that we have opposed, and we'll be getting into that in the next week or two. And there are a number of bills that he is considering whether or not to sign. But the bills that I'm about to go over with you, one, have saved you as a business owner tens of thousands of dollars per employee, and in some cases even more. It wouldn't be fair to get into that, but I'm sure as we come up with a calculation, you will be seeing updated figures. but we had a very good year legislatively, and it's because we're remaining organized and because of the good work that you guys are doing. So let's just jump right into it. So on May 19th of this year, we discussed the governor's budget, and the specific item that we discussed was dealing with the insolvency, the state insolvency within the federal unemployment insurance system. So the federal unemployment insurance system allows states to be technically insolvent for 10 years without making a major move to resolve the issue. Most states, which had surpluses this year, and this is red states, blue states, purple states, whatever, dedicated a very large portion of their budget surpluses to resolving their unemployment insurance deficits, so that they did not go insolvent, which, if they do go insolvent, means that you as an employer will face a mandatory $42 additional per employee for 10 years until you have an additional $420 in taxes per employee. California's current insolvency is about $21 billion. The state dedicated about $1 billion towards that in the budget. To give you an idea, the state has about 75.7. It's actually grown to about 78 billion in surpluses now. About 8 billion of that was given back in one-time refunds to people that do not pay state taxes. And so that gives you about $70 billion. We had a shortfall somewhere around 21, 22 billion on the state unemployment insurance. You can ask why we have such a large deficit. It's because we have state regulations on unemployment insurance that the state is falling back on the federal government to pay for. So the federal government has, obviously, we all know, we've all probably gone through the wonderful process when you're 16 or 15, whenever you get that first job, and go, what is unemployment insurance? And because it's taken out on a weekly basis or whenever you get a paycheck. Well, because the state of California so greatly exceeds unemployment insurance benefits, it has been asking the federal government and all 49 other states to cover for those policies to the tune of about $21.3 billion. So if we wanted to completely resolve the question, we would have dedicated $21.3 billion of that one-time surplus. It would have been a perfect use for it. Like I said, a majority of states that had deficits other than states which you likely do not consider as being fiscally sound, like New York. I read recently that the governor of New York had to resign, and he was the third one in a row to have to resign in the last 15 years. So they're not states that we want to be in the company of. But we dedicated $1 billion out of our budget surplus. We fought for that, and it was included in the budget. So that is a success. That hopefully in negotiations with the federal administration will allow the state to remain without an insolvency declaration. So that is a success. That's going to save you $420 per employee. On the 26th of May, we took an opposed position to two bills, ACA 8, which would have increased taxes across the board on almost all property, and AB 1253, which would have increased taxes on high net worth individuals or anybody that owns a home, essentially, in the state of California. Anyone who has a net asset on paper of more than $450,000. Well, if you own a home in the state of California and is a median priced home, that's $600,000. If you've lived in it for more than 10 years, which a lot of people have, you have assets on paper, not in reality, but on paper, of roughly $450,000. So it would have raised taxes on you as well. So both of those bills, the first, ACA 8, which means Assembly Constitutional Amendment, number 8, by Assemblymember Lee from San Jose, died despite picking up multiple authors who are in leadership. AB 1253 by Assemblymember Santiago of Los Angeles also died in the Assembly Revenue and Tax Committee. So those are bills that you supported us on and opposing, and they saved your ability to continue to put your resources to work employing people. June 2nd, we took a position on two bills, AB 71 by Luz Rivas, a Democrat Assembly member from Arleta, took an opposed position, and AB 310, again, from Assemblymember Lee from San Jose. And the first was a corporate tax hike for homeless funding. One of the things that we have run into quite often in the last several decades of doing this is an announced reason for a tax without any dedication within the tax proposal for that reason. And so if you read the tax proposal, it gets into that homeless services cost the state of California quite a lot of money, and that we have a lot of homeless people, and we have a lot of rich people. And so therefore we need to raise taxes on corporations. And that's pretty much the bill. So what they do is they conflate two issues that have nothing to do with each other, and they put them right side by side in paragraphs on a piece of paper and hope that that's enough argument for the legislature to pass the bill. We were able to, along with a lot of others, stall that bill in the Assembly. AB 310, again, by Assemblymember Lee, was a tax hike on all operations globally of any company that had any sort of operation or major subsidiary or vendors from the state of California. So say you are Boeing, which has no major manufacturing in the state of California, but there is a significant aerospace industry, especially in the Mojave Valley, for instance. Because you would get a large number of your parts from California, therefore the state would be clarifying a right to tax everything Boeing does anywhere in the globe. Obviously, that is, and it's called the unitary tax. It pretends that every unit of a business, every dollar from a business comes through the state of California and is available for taxation. It has been tried multiple times since the early 70s. Every single time, the federal courts have thrown it out. But what the state does is once that is thrown out, then they demand all sorts of tax records from you. So the refunds on the tail end end up being much smaller than the net that was taken from you. So in any case, both bills died in committee. So those are very big successes. So especially for people that have clients that are outside the state of California, because obviously it would put you at a huge disadvantage to anybody that was within the state of California. Also on June 2nd, we tracked the then proposed $6 trillion spending framework by the federal administration that essentially made all of the emergency spending programs that had been passed since March of 2020 permanent. So whether or not we needed the $6 trillion that had been spent in the emergency bailout bills connected with the lockdowns and other emergency responses for COVID, we, for all time in perpetuity, were going to continue to spend the $6 trillion. An example that I would give to you is that on your cell phone bill today, there is a small tax that is that you are still paying. That when we invaded Cuba as part of the Spanish-American War, was put into place as a luxury tax on telephones, because at the time there were only about 16,000 in the state of in the United States. So it was considered a it was considered a luxury. Well, for whatever reason, some court, when mobile phones started to become a big item in the late 80s, ruled that this long not collected tax actually was meant for mobile phones, even though no one had ever even thought of a radio when the tax was introduced. So every month, about $1 of your tax, about $1 of your cell phone bill goes to pay for the Spanish-American War. And I don't know if you're a student of history like I am, that war ended before the turn of the last century. So, but it's still there, it's still being collected, and it is still going to the Department of Defense. So our concern obviously was, if you make the COVID spending permanent, right? And in the case of the cell phone bill that I just gave you, that collects several $100 million a year, which is a travesty. It's unnecessary and it's silly. If you enshrine $6 trillion, which is for every year for in perpetuity for a health issue that we may hopefully, knock on wood, aren't living with in 2022, aren't living with in 2023, aren't living with in 2024, but we are spending 100% above anything we had spent previously as a nation on health issues that we no longer have. So we opposed it. We started to work with the federal government and our federal representative, Ken Calvert's office. The administration has pulled that back. They're trying to get 2 bills, or actually they're trying to get 3 bills through now in Washington, D.C. This only makes sense in government math. So they said, well, we're going to economize. We're not going to spend the $6 trillion, but we're going to propose 3 separate bills that essentially do the same thing for $8.2 trillion, and which is basically double what the the 2019 federal budget was. So the battle goes on, but for the time being, nothing has occurred. There are not the votes currently in the Senate to pass that out. So there's a number of different items. One of the test votes on this will be the attempt to raise the federal debt limit, which has to be raised by October 2nd, or the federal government runs out of money, because we would then be $29 trillion in debt at that point. So we're monitoring that very closely. June 9th. So moving on, June 9th, we took a opposed position on 2 bills, AB 650 by Assemblymember Al Marztucci from Torrance, and AB 1119 by Assemblymember Bunny Wicks, excuse me, from Berkeley, California. And so the AB 650 proposed giving 6.5, requiring healthcare providers and anyone in the healthcare industry to give 6.5 billion of their dollars, not state dollars, not federal dollars. There was no funding source for this, but to give 6.5 billion in COVID-related bonuses to any worker, whether they worked with the public or not, that in any way had anything to do with healthcare. So now this is above combat pay. This is above bonuses that would be required as part of union work contracts. This is above all of the other things. We were very supportive of every single healthcare worker in and around Corona. So this is not us trying to be mean, but in any case, that bill was held in the Assembly. AB 1119 by Assemblymember Bunny Wicks, Democrat from Berkeley, as I said, would have added a family responsibility to any employer's insurance program. And that family responsibility would be able to be defined on an ongoing basis for any reason by the employee after their 30th day of employment. And you would not be able to have asked what their family responsibilities were, who they considered to be part of their nuclear family, during the interview process for the job. So as a for instance, you hire someone in your office, they come to you at day 30 and they say, I have a guy, he lives next door to me, I call him Uncle, I need him on the health insurance plan. And under the bill, that would have been allowed. So both were held in the assembly. The healthcare bill did move through, AB 1119 did move through part of the process and was held up in the Assembly Appropriations Committee. So it has been out of all of its policy committees in the assembly, and it can be taken up next year. Right now, we have it down as a success. But in any case, then moving on to July 14th, I am almost through the hit parade, folks. Stick with me. Hold your questions to the end, and any applause that you may be going through. But July 14th, 2021, Jeff Miller's just riveted. SB 467 by Senator Scott Wiener from San Francisco. We took an oppose on because it bans all new petroleum development in the state of California. So it would have eliminated right off the bat 250,000 union jobs throughout the state. And by new development, so say you have an 80-year-old well, like the 80-year-old wells that are still pumping in downtown Huntington Beach, and actually eliminate underground seepage onto the beach and into the water of approximately 2,500 barrels a year. So that there is so the pump is on land. It has no interaction with the water. It's within a couple hundred yards in somebody's backyard, and it's just pumping away. And it's basically been doing that for 75 years. Very little environmental impact, but it removes the huge lake of oil underneath Huntington Beach, which bubbles up. Anybody who's been to Huntington Beach knows if you are on the beach for any length of time, you can expect to get tar between your toes. It eliminates the pressure underneath the sands because it's now being pumped and it's being able to be used, as opposed to buying a barrel of oil from, I don't know, Saudi Arabia or any other country that would sell it to us. We either pump oil in this state for energy, or we buy it from Venezuela, Saudi Arabia, or other OPEC countries. And again, I don't know if you guys are student history or big newspaper readers. I'm assuming if you are on this call, you have some interest in current events. Those countries don't always have the same set of values that we are hoping to enshrine here in California. So just as a pattern. But in any case, that was held in the Senate. AB 1400 by Assemblymember Kalra from San Jose. We took an opposed position on it because it created a $400 billion single payer healthcare system, which may have affected your bottom line and the ability for everybody here in California to continue. July 21st. So hang in there, guys. We're almost done. It's all good news. Bad policy ideas, good news for us. SB 213 by Senator Cortese from the Salinas, San Jose area. We opposed. And why did we oppose it? Because it expands workers' compensation to almost every issue, going out 5 years. So if somebody were to leave your employ and find themselves injured 5 years afterward, even if the injury were contemporary, so someone gets in a car accident with an uninsured driver, cannot get any coverage for their accident, for their insurance, they could turn around and say, well, you know what? I worked for Bobby Spiegel 5 years ago. So let's hit the Chamber's workers' comp insurance claim. That was held in the Senate. AB 95 by Assemblymember Lowe from San Francisco, which we opposed, was a massive new bereavement leave program. Again, we understand bereavement leave. We have encouraged every single person on this call and within the chamber to be very sensitive to any of the problems that people may have during the pandemic. But creating a permanent program in which any employee of more than 2 weeks can say, someone within my extended family, and that includes neighbors, died or is feeling blue. I need to take 120 days off. And by the way, you can send my checks to this address. That was held in Assembly approves. AB 995 by Assembly Member Lorena Gonzalez, Democrat from San Diego, which we took an oppose on, had a similar but even larger massive new leave program. It was held in the Assembly inactive file. So these bills, a number of these bills could come back during the next year of session, but if they go to the Assembly inactive file, they have to come up with a new reason that wasn't considered last year for why it should be reconsidered. So we will be tracking that closely. And then finally, AB 1003, we opposed from Assembly Member Lorena Gonzalez, specifically because at the time we took the opposed position, it made employers liable for any outcome that even honest outcomes. So someone bought a product or a service and decided 2 to 3 years down the lane that they either didn't need the product or they didn't want the service. They could, as part of of the bill, have sued you for fraud, and you would have on the permanent record of your organization that you had been sued for fraud, even though they would have said thank you so much, etc. At the time, there would have been no defense. So the bill was amended to basically handle a very discrete problem that was going on in San Diego, where there were a series of businesses that had defrauded their employees out of wages. And so, again, one of the things that, while we still oppose the bill, it was passed, we are counting it as a success for us because it passed as amended. So we remained opposed to the bill just specifically because obviously wage fraud is already well regulated, and but in any case. So with that, the ritual beating is over, and I give you the baton to come back at me with any questions, comments, anger, or other anything else you might be feeling.
Thank you, Jeff. So we have one question at the moment.
Okay.
So here it goes. It was reported yesterday that the ports in Southern California are backed up with the large container ships and they're unable to dock in the LA Long Beach ports. Aerial photos estimate 70 to 80 ships are parked outside the harbor and cite it as an all-time high.
Yes.
Can you discuss the reason for this and how it may impact our local economy here in Corona?
So you're hearing a lot of things. So yes. So if you think about it, the Port of Los Angeles can go through 16 ships a day. They can offload and reload and get out of the harbor 16 ships a day. Long Beach, which often bills itself as bigger than Los Angeles, but as this goes, can do 12 a day. So that's 28 a day. So in terms of simple math, you're looking at all of the ships being docked. And again, it looks very dramatic and it is very disconcerting and it is strange. But that's about a 4-day backlog. Now, the whole reason we're able to have insurance as employers, as individuals, is because for thousands of years, insurance in the maritime industry was designed specifically to handle this. So no ship that is coming into, and the reason I can speak with some authorities, I've worked with the Port of Los Angeles now for 6.5 years, and I'm on a call this afternoon specifically about this issue. So no one who has a package on those ships did not know when they left their port of origination, that there wasn't a backup, and there wasn't going to be a backup. Now, the reason there's a backup on the port side is multiple. One, there's too much trade coming in to handle, so you're over capacity, and there really isn't an easy way to get more capacity. Two, upon being inaugurated, the Biden administration OSHA rules for what qualifies as COVID leave for frontline workers and who qualifies as frontline workers was changed substantially. So you have workers on the docks, and I'm trying to be very political here because I don't want any of them showing up whenever I'm in the port with, a tire iron to discuss my recorded opinion on this. But the number of people that were reporting out for 2 or 3 days a week with COVID-related symptoms, and I know quite a bit about COVID. I think all of us here have kind of become pocket experts on it, or at least we like to think so. The one thing we do know is that very few people get COVID over and over again for 2 to 3 days, just enough to be able to qualify for their full-time pay without triggering a sick leave. So you've got a work slowdown issue to a certain extent, as well as a full capacity issue. So really, it is an issue. Obviously, no one wants to sit. No one wants to go to anywhere to the ocean and have it look like there's a flotilla waiting for an invasion. But it will be going through. Now, there are cases. There was a toy executive that urged everyone on CNBC a couple of days ago to buy all of their Christmas toys early. I've never heard a toy executive be so blatantly honest and encourage people to go out in the stores immediately and buy toys. I'm not quite sure if that had anything to do with trade or had to do with the fact that his quarter is up on September 30th, and he really would like people to start buying Christmas toys right now. The LA Opera said that they did not have some background for one of their big shows, and it got a big amount of press, and so we knocked that down in about a day and a half, that it had never left Amsterdam. So there are it's an easy thing to talk about. It is very disconcerting. We all wish it wouldn't be there. The weirdest part about it is because of environmental rules, there's only so many that are allowed to remain at anchorage. So if you are out looking at the coast, you could actually watch several of these ships that are disconcertingly huge just float. So they're not fixed in the ocean, giving you the idea that they're not going anywhere. They're on a controlled float, which in itself is disconcerting because, I'm not a harbor pilot. I have no idea how they do it. But you're watching the Empire State Building float by without its engines on. And yet that still happens. So anyway, but that's kind of the situation right now. Is there's essentially a 5 to 7 day backlog. But we aren't losing any trade because of it.
Thank you, Jeff. There are no further questions.
Okay.
All right. Thank you very much, Jeff. And
Thank
also,
you.
We had a few more people join in on the call, which we have Wendell Bugtie from Supervisor Karen Spiegel's office, Colin Markovic representing Assemblymember Sabrina Cervantes, as well as Dr. Monica Green, President of Norco College. Thank you for attending. As Jeff mentioned, you can reach out to your local representatives, Assemblymember Sabrina Cervantes and Senator Richard Roth, both of whose contact information is provided on your screen. Again, thank you, Jeff, for providing us with those critical updates. We'd once again like to thank today's sponsor, Raising Cane's. They have a commitment to not only their customers, but in giving back to each community in as many ways as they can. Learn more at raisingcanes.com. If you would like to sponsor a future business briefing, please contact the Chamber. Register now to join us next Wednesday, September 29th, for more advocacy news. Thank you, everyone, for attending. Our meeting is adjourned.